Welcome to the Intellectual Agrarian Podcast, where we talk philosophy from the farm. I'm your host, Terrence Leahy. All right, today's guest is Paul Norton, a friend, a farmer, former employer, and the manager of Royal Oak Farm. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Well, thanks for having me, T.
So before we get too far underway, can you give us a brief explanation of Royal Oak Farm and how you got to be there?
Sure. Well, we're an apple orchard up in northern Illinois, right outside Harvard. And we started strictly as an apple orchard to begin with. We have currently about 19,000 trees. And we also do some pumpkins. We do squash gourds, ornamental corn, and a few other side crops as well. But our main focus is the apples. And my grandparents were the ones that started the farm back in 1992. And they had started it kind of as a retirement project. My grandpa had been in the building industry and retired out of that in the late 80s and wanted to buy a piece of property, build a house, and just kind of, live on the land and enjoy it. And he found this piece of property up here in Harvard and liked it a lot, purchased it, and decided to rent out most of the rest of the land and then start building a home there. And he had a friend of his from California that was a farmer out in California and had done a lot of organic crops and a lot of different things and wanted to rent some land from him and grow some crops on it. My grandpa said, sure, go right ahead. So he started planting vegetable crops and then asked, well, would it be all right if I put some fruit trees in by the old farmhouse? There was an old farmhouse that was located on the property here. And my grandpa said, yeah, go right ahead. That's fine. So he put in about 100 trees, and there was a mixture of pears and plums and apples and every kind of fruit you can imagine that he thought would do okay in this area. And so he planted a whole bunch of stuff. My grandpa got involved with it a little bit and enjoyed it so much. He said, let's just go ahead and plant a few more. So the next year they ordered a bunch of trees and started putting them in. That first year they put in 5,000 trees.
Yeah, that's a few.
And we thought, yeah. And we thought he was a little crazy. We thought, what are you doing? That's a lot of trees. And
especially for retirement.
Do you know what you're do you know what you're doing? I mean, that's a lot of trees to deal with. And he said, yeah, we'll figure it out. I think we're just going to grow the apples and maybe we'll bring them to farm markets or something. We'll sell them and, get rid of them. I said, okay, well, sounds good. So he planted 5,000 trees the first year. And then the second year they decided, we got another piece of property in the back here. Let's go ahead and plant a few more. So they put in about another 3,000 or 4,000 that following year. So by this point, he was at 9,000 trees, and they started producing a crop a few years later, and he decided to start bringing them to farm markets. So they did that for a little while, and then he thought, it'd be really nice if we had people come to the farm here and pick them here, so we don't have to haul them out. So that's when they decided to open up the U-Pick operation, and he thought, if people are coming here, they're going to want to do more than just pick apples while they're here. Let's, put up a market and a little gift shop and, have an actual attraction here for people. So they put up a market and a gift shop and a restaurant and an entertainment area for kids with play equipment, a petting zoo. They built a whole bunch of additions here to the farm. They opened up for the retail operation in 97, and it took off from there. We came to be part of the operation. I myself was here in 03. And my parents have come on board and my sister and brother-in-law. So we have most of the family here working and involved with it. From going from a retirement project to a full-fledged operation, it's been quite a dramatic shift, but that's what it's ended up being. So it's been exciting. It's been fun. But we, try to offer a lot of different things for people to do while they're here. We still go to farm markets. It's still part of our operation. And, we focus mainly on trying to go direct to the consumer, with our apples and other products, because we feel that's the best connection for customers, especially because they get an opportunity to meet the farm and meet the farmer and see what we do firsthand, and then experience the crops, direct from the farm. So it's a great combination.
Yeah, there's nothing like picking your own apples. Now,
yes.
I know this is a question you've been asked a lot, but for the sake of the audience, because I love your answer to this question, are you guys certified organic?
Well, when we originally started, like I mentioned, the guy that was involved with my grandpa was an organic grower in California, before organic was even a buzzword. That was back in the 70s and early 80s. And so he took a lot of that knowledge and resources and started implementing them here at the farm. And so my grandpa, jumped right on board with them. And so we were certified organic when we first opened the operation for the first few years. But what we found, especially with the apples specifically, was that there were a lot of disease and pest issues that we were having a lot of problems with that we just could not find an organic solution for. There wasn't any products that were certified organic that dealt with them. And the first few years they were growing a crop, they lost 50 to 60% of the crop, and they just didn't think it was economically feasible to try to continue that operation.
Yeah, it's
That
not
and the
very
fact
good
that,
economics.
yeah, that and the fact that they were, a lot of the certified organic products that were available at that time, they were having to spray too often, and the expense of having to go out and spray, 9,000 trees adds up quickly. So there was a lot of factors that went into it. My grandpa thought, we really need to consider looking at some other alternatives. So he investigated some non-organic products, decided not to continue with the certification. And to this day, we still aren't certified organic, but there's still a lot of that mentality and practice that we utilize here at the farm. But when it comes to certain issues in the Midwest area that we're in here, we just deal with apple scab and certain pests just horribly. And there's only so much that you can do from an organic standpoint to handle the problem economically. So it's just become a difficult situation to grow organically in this particular spot. If I was to continue organically, I probably would consider, another region of the country that was more properly suited for it. I know Washington State and a lot of other areas have great success growing organic apples. But there's not too many operations in this area that do, and that's mainly because of the difficulties that you run into.
Now, instead, you guys use an integrated pest management system, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's technically called biointensive integrated pest management, which is just kind of a long term. But it involves a mixture of organic and non-organic practices. We try to minimize the amount of spraying we do, period. That's kind of the biggest point of it, because you only want to spray when you absolutely have to. You don't want to have to be out there, every week putting products on if it's not necessary, especially if the problem is controlled in a small portion of the orchard, not the whole orchard. There's a lot more fine tuning and micromanagement that you do with that type of program. But what we also integrate into it is a lot of biological avenues for dealing with pests, especially. There's several new techniques that have come out onto the market that have been adopted in the organic program, but also have a lot of uses, even if you're non-organic. Mm-hmm. And they're very effective, very safe, and have been a great utilization for us here at the farm. And even with some of the pests you deal with apples, we're experimenting with pheromone disruption and other means that, save us from having to spray, period. So for that particular pest. Mm-hmm. So that's a great avenue, and we want to continue to learn more about that and further that, as we go through each year here at the farm, because there's always a lot of information that you have to take in. And some of it is trial and error, and you have to try things and see how they work and what you can adapt to the farm
well, and that's
situation.
Why you said location is everything, quite literally. Some of this stuff works better in the Midwest where you're at. Some things don't.
Yes, that is true. In the Midwest here, we deal with a lot of humidity at times, and the pest cycles that we deal with here sometimes are more advanced than other areas, where a certain area may only deal with 2 generations of a pest. We may deal with 3. There's certain things like that come into play that we always have to be mindful of, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to grow crops here, certain crops, especially like apples. But we felt we've adapted very well, and we've learned a lot over the years, and we've been able to utilize a lot of different techniques and different things that have been fairly effective. And, with the whole mindset of trying to be as ecologically sound as we can and have to minimize the amount of spraying we're doing. So those are always 2 things that are in the back of our mind, no matter what we're doing.
And I have to say, you guys do a fantastic job every time I've been there. I mean, everything seems like it's running smoothly and seamlessly.
Yeah, well, we try to We try to have that happen as much as possible.
Now, could you tell our audience a little bit about what your responsibilities at the orchard are? What kind of your average typical day during the season would look like?
Yeah, well, my main role at the farm is the crop operations and operations in general. So anything that deals with the crops, I handle oversight of, and also the main operation as well as logistically making sure everything's functioning the way it needs to. And I'm usually the problem solver on the farm as far as something breaks on the
That's
gets to
why
figure
over
out
the
how to
intercoms
fix
you'll
it.
frequently hear,
Yes,
Paul?
yeah. Yeah. I get to solve a lot of different problems and issues that come up. A lot of that's just because I have experience with a lot of different equipment here, and know a lot of different things. But as far as the crops go, that's my main focus. I handle most of the oversight of what's going on in the crop workload, and also during the season, handling the products, making sure they're going where they need to, um, and make sure that products are getting stocked in the cooler and moving where they need to go. So that's my main role, but I also handle a lot of other smaller items throughout the farm. So kind of a jack of all trades, master of none, but jack of all trades.
Just keeps you running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, yeah, it does. But it's enjoyable, and I get to handle a lot of different things throughout the day, which I tend to like a varied schedule, so that's always a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, we're mainly focusing on pruning, so we're trying to get all the trees pruned and ready for the spring, and then also working on equipment, making sure we have everything maintained and servicing anything needs to be done. So those are really our two
Mm-hmm.
main priorities right now. And then as we get into spring, we deal with planting, and we deal with tree training and a lot of other activities that go on. And then once we get into the fall and late summer, we're dealing with harvesting and packing and washing, and a lot of the activities that revolve around the apples. So that's our main focus at that point. And then once we get into the late fall, then we're into cider season and deal with cider and all the fun that goes with that. So it does vary throughout the season, and my specific schedule changes and fluctuates daily, because not only am I dealing with the work outside, but also dealing with a lot of office work and phone calls and dealing with distributors and different things. So it's a varied schedule, especially for myself. And usually any schedule that you set, I always leave openings for things that may pop up, because they do every day. Different issues that come up, or something breaks, or something's going wrong that you have to solve. So you have
Because
to always
that never
be
happens on a farm.
never ever. Yeah, you always have to be ready for anything that can happen, and be available to shift schedule, and try to tackle a problem when it comes up. And then make sure everybody's needing to be where they need to be and doing what they need to do, and
Mm-hmm.
know what they need to do. Those are three of the biggest issues you deal with pretty much on any farm.
Yeah.
Making sure everybody's working together well, and making sure everything's getting accomplished that you need to, and then putting additional resources or people into places when they're needed. Sometimes you got to grab people from over here, move them over there, whatever it may be. So it's always a varied schedule.
Yeah. And you guys have a pretty large staff working there during the actual apple season too, right?
Yeah. During the season, at the peak of the apple picking season, usually from beginning of September to the end of October, we can have upwards of 120, 130 people. Most of those are in part-time roles, and may work a few days here or there, but there's others that are in full-time
Mm-hmm.
roles during that part of the season. And then after we close things down towards the middle of November, then our staff, dramatically drops down to just a handful of people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a main crew of about 4 or 5 guys that work all through the winter, working on pruning and maintenance. And then once we get into spring, then it ramps back up again into, maybe 8, 10, 12 people to deal with some of the crop work that needs to be done, and then get the market ready, and, a lot of the other activities coming out of winter that we deal with, because our main market building was shut down during the winter, and then we opened it back up during the spring and summer. Plus we start going to farm markets late spring.
Always a fun
So we
thing.
have staff for the bakery Oh yeah, yeah, you would know. It's
Just
a
so
fun
the audience
activity.
knows, I actually used to
Uh,
run Royal Oaks Farmers Markets, which was loads of fun for me.
yeah, and he did a great job at it too. But yeah, it's a lot of work going to the markets and making sure you have all the product and everything ready. So we always have staff, getting the bakery items ready and doing everything they need to do there. So yeah, it starts ramping up by the time you get to May and June, and then by time flies, and by August you're up to getting ready to open the main retail operation again. So it does fluctuate a lot during the year, as far as how many people we have working, but it ramps up pretty quickly.
Hmm. And you said you have several of your family members involved in the orchard. I obviously know that from personal experience, but being like the third generation there, and I know you have a lot of kids, are your children starting to take a bit of an interest in following after you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I have 6 kids, so I have my hands full. But we have two. The two oldest right now are starting to get involved. Austin's 13, and he's helping out at the farm and working when he can and helping on different things. And Tim, my second oldest, enjoys working with animals, so he enjoys taking care of some of the animals we have here at the farm and learning a lot about that. Um, so they're starting to get actively involved, and Caleb, even my third oldest, is helping out every once in a while. So they're starting to enjoy finding their little niche here at the farm and what they like doing and helping with, and it's kind of exciting to see that. And I enjoy having them tag along and watch what we're doing. I've even had Tim tag along with working with the bees and some of the other things that we do at the farm. And it's fun and exciting to be able to teach them about what you do and then have them enjoy it and learn from it. And that's just a real fulfilling experience. So I'm hoping down the road they're going to continue to take interest in the farm. It's not one of those things where I expect them to, but I do being able to have them enjoy learning about it and taking part in it. And hopefully that'll continue as the years go on.
And that's one of the nice things about the orchard you have there. I mean, there's so many different little outlets that if they don't like one thing, there's another thing for them to try and find out where their niche
Oh
is.
yeah, yeah. There's so many different things that are involved in the farm here that go beyond just growing apples. Because we do keep animals here at the farm. We keep bees. We have beehives here at the farm. We have all kinds of needs and trades, whether it's plumbing, heating, carpentry, whatever. I mean, there's so many different avenues that you can take an interest in here at the farm and contribute. That it's really enjoyable to have different outlets for the kids to figure out the things that they enjoy and like doing and have interest in. But even for our employees that come, it's enjoyable to find the right spot for employees. Sometimes certain employees like working with certain things and do a phenomenal job at that. And being able to plug them in there and utilize them there is and have them enjoy it is a wonderful experience. And I think you end up with um, a better experience for the employees to be able to contribute to an area they really truly enjoy doing and love doing. That's always a joy to have that, and for the kids especially as they're learning the different outlets at the farm here, all the different things we do and deal with, figuring out what they enjoy. Because even in the technology realm, we deal with a lot of technology, running our website and
Hmm.
dealing with social media and all the marketing and advertising, all the other things that we do. There's outlets even there that if they have interest, they can get involved with. So it's just such a enjoyable experience overall for the kids to enjoy it. And then even, having employees come in and, not knowing really where they fit in, be able to find a spot that they really enjoy and love. And, it's great to see that. So that's the beauty of an operation like ours. And it's kind of unique. There's not a lot of operations where you see that. We're so varied from everything from business to agriculture to trades to, you name it, you can contribute in some way, shape, or form. So that's a wonderful thing.
It truly is amazing, especially when you're able to go there and see that. And since I was involved, it was wonderful to be able to put my particular talents to use in an area there, which in most farming, my talents aren't always the best since I'm not good with my hands. But being good with my mouth apparently was good for farmers markets. So there it went.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. There's sometimes you bring employees in and they work in one area that you are hiring for, and you find maybe that's not quite the right fit for them, but you plug them into another spot and they excel and do great and love it. So that's one of the benefits that we do have, especially even in the seasonal operation. How the fact that we're running for a short period of time, in full steam, and then kind of slowing down is finding the niches where people can contribute even in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enjoyable, to be able to have somebody find a spot where they really love and love doing, and contribute in that way. Because then everybody's skill is handling a shovel or answering phone calls. There's different outlets for all of that, and there's needs for all of that, and it's just finding the right spot for the right person.
Now, I have a question here for you because this is honestly, folks, one of the coolest things they have there. You have the world's largest apple tree maze. What was the inspiration behind that? I mean, amazing apples. That's something, I mean, just an incredible idea. What was the inspiration for it?
Well, that was my grandpa's idea. We've been talking for a few years about adding other attractions here at the farm, and what would people really enjoy doing, and trying to come up with something that was a little bit different, because that's always been kind of our motto is, okay, if we're going to do something, let's do something that maybe is a little bit different than everything else out there. And we thought about a corn maze. We thought, man, that's something that customers really enjoy doing, and it's something they look at it a lot of other operations, say, oh, that's kind of a neat activity. But then we said, okay, well, if we're going to do a corn maze, maybe we need to do something a little bit different than just kind of your standard corn maze. And my grandpa had sat down and he thought through a lot of ideas. He presented some to us, thought, maybe we do something that's a little more permanent, that, is more unique and a little different. And then, he had a thought that we have a row of trees that we had put into the farm here originally when the second planting around 93, 94, that were done espalier style. So they're grown horizontally on wires, instead of we used what was called central leader training system originally when they first started here. And this was a little bit different. It was more of a hedgerow type of a growing habit. And he wanted to have a row of it here on the farm to kind of show people, hey, there's different ways you can grow apple trees, and this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But then he thought, we've done so well with that row. It's been in since 93, 94, and it's flourished and done well. And maybe we could take that same concept and use that for a maze and make it a maze of apple trees. So that was kind of his inspiration for it. He thought, maybe we can figure out a way to do this. So we talked to one of the maze architect companies and said, could we design an apple tree maze? And they said, yeah, we can do that. It shouldn't be too difficult. So they worked with us and put together a layout, and it took us really, it's about a year to get all the planning figured out, and then it took us a year to put in all the trees and the posts and wires and everything that we had to do to establish the rows and different things that we're doing. And it's turned out beautiful. It really has been a great attraction, and it has close to 3,000 trees in it and well over 1.5 miles of paths that go through it. And if you look at it from the air, it looks like a giant apple, which is kind of neat. So, and then he was trying to figure out a name for it, and he mentioned it to the rest of the family and said, we got to come up with a name for it. And we came up with a few thoughts, and we thought, we don't really like any of those. So he was helping some customers out here the season after we put it in, and he said, we're trying to come up with a name for this apple tree maze we got out here. And he the customer mentioned to him, well, what would you give me if I come up with a name for it? He said, I'll throw you in a pumpkin or something if you can come up with a name. So he went out apple picking, came back, and he stopped him and grabbed him and said, hey, I got a name for you. My grandpa's like, all right, well, what did you come up with? He said, Amazing Apples. And he said, that's perfect. That's wonderful. So that's where the name came from. And it stuck. And it's a very neat attraction and very unique in the sense that people can go through, pick apples, but also there's activities and games to do in there, and there's little rest stops to kind of catch your breath as you're going through. because it is a lot of walking. I can say that from firsthand experience. It's a lot of walking.
You've had to walk it more than
But
once.
oh yes, yes, many times. But there's a lot of activities. There's a tower inside you can climb up and see the whole thing. So it's a great attraction, and the maze portion of it was kind of the uniqueness of it. But what we have kind of worked in is other activities that can be taken part. You can take part in as you're in there. So it's not just going through a maze. It's following and doing games and a few other things while you're in there, and those will change kind of constantly because the maze itself is set, and isn't going to change. So we've designed it so we can kind of add different features and attractions to it as the years progress, so that there's something always new to check out in there. But you will be able to pick apples in there as you go through, and it's just a great attraction. And it really services what we do here at the farm, which is our main occupation is growing apples. And so being able to experience that in kind of a unique way is really special.
It truly is an amazing piece of agricultural architecture. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
one of
it
those
is
things, of
very
course,
unique.
an apple tree maze. That's perfect.
Yeah, no, it is very unique, and been really blessed with that whole concept. Is it's worked out incredibly well.
Now, before we kind of wrap things up here, I was wondering if there's anything you would like to share with the audience. Tell them about your business or things you guys have upcoming.
Well, this coming season, we're planning to have a decent crop of apples. It's hard to know, until you get into spring where you're going to be at. But we are looking forward to this upcoming season. And believe it or not, it's going to be celebrating our 20th anniversary of being open.
20th
Um,
anniversary? Wow.
yeah, because we opened up in '97 for retail operations. So
That's
this is our
right.
20th year at the market and gift shop and everything. So we're going to have some special activities kind of centered around that, and it'll be an exciting year. We're really looking forward to it. We're going to have a couple new things to check out, and our hope is that we're going to have a great crop of apples to share, and we have some new varieties that we're putting in this year that'll be available soon. And it's always exciting each year as the trees progress and you see growth, and you get the chance to pick some new apples that maybe you hadn't had a chance to do before. So there's going to be a lot of new things and a lot of great things in this upcoming season, and we're looking forward to it quite a bit.
I know I am too. And before we let you go here, what is your favorite apple that you think the audience really needs to try?
Oh, my main apple I've always chosen has been Empire, mainly because it's a ubiquitous apple. You can pretty much use it for just about anything. It holds really well. The flavor is outstanding. It's not too sweet, not too tart. I tend to not like a super sweet apple, although those tend to be the most popular. So Empire is a really good apple, but I'd have to add to that a newer one that we've started growing the last few years is Snow Sweet, and it is a phenomenal apple. It has a buttery-like flavor. It's really unique. It's probably one of the most unique flavor palettes, of the apple varieties. It's very different than most of the other apples, and it is an apple that's great for cooking, eating, baking, cider, anything. It's just a real all-around, all-purpose apple. So that's probably creeping up there on my favorite list. So those two would probably be the two I would definitely recommend checking out because they are phenomenal. And it's something a little bit different than Honeycrisp and Gala and some of the sweeter varieties.
Well, that's the fun part
Although
about
those
going to
are,
an orchard. You get to try all
yeah,
those different types.
well, and that's the thing that makes apple growing so unique. I always tell people, there's very few other fruits or even vegetables where there's so much variance in varieties and flavors. So, it's strawberries, you eat one strawberry variety and you eat a different one. Yeah, maybe there's a little bit of difference, but with apples, it can be so drastic. It's like night and day difference. So that's the beauty of it. When you come out to the orchard, you can try 6 or 8 different varieties, and they're all different and have different uses and different purposes. And there's so much uniqueness to each apple variety that makes it really special. And I enjoy, growing all different varieties and experimenting with, trying some new varieties that maybe you don't have as much familiarity with, and there's just a lot of joy in that, and it's something that I personally enjoy a lot, especially when it comes to cider and some of the other variances that can come into that. It's just really fun.
And it's enjoyable to try all of them because that is honestly my favorite part about going to the orchard, besides getting to
Yes.
chat
Oh
with you
yeah.
guys.
Yeah. I always tell people when they come out, try as many as you can, because I can guarantee there's one you haven't tried yet that when you try, you go, oh man, how have I been missing out on this one? It's just a really good apple. So I always tell people, try as many as you can while you're here, and don't just rely on ones you know and have tried before. There's always new ones you may not have heard of, but before, and you try them and you find, man, that's amazing. So, yep, always try as many as you can while you're out here.
Now, can people find you on Facebook? What's your website?
Yeah, we're located on Facebook, and then the website is Royal. It's www.royaloakfarmorchard.com. And if you look up Royal Oak Farm Orchard on Facebook, you'll find us there too, and on Instagram and a lot of the other social media outlets, Twitter. So yeah, we have a presence there, and then also you can check us out on our website, and we have a listings of a lot of the different activities and different things we offer at the farm. And then as we get closer to the season, there's updates on picking and what's available when and all that. So.
Well, Paul, thank you for being on the show. It's always great to talk with you, and thank you for sharing some apple knowledge. I hope you'll be on
No
the show
problem.
again
Anytime.
sometime.
Yep, anytime. Just give me a buzz. No problem at all.
Thanks for listening to our second ever podcast. Please go and visit Royal Oak Farm once they open this year. It's a great place to spend time with the entire family. You can support the show by subscribing to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and take a look at our website, farmingthedream.com, or you can also type in intellectualagrarian.com to get to the same place. Take a look at our blog. Also follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/intellectualagrarian.